Hey everyone, how's it going? How goes it? My name is Rudy Caceres, and this is SPSM Chat, SPSM, Suicide Prevention Social Media. We have a good one for you. If we didn't, then why would we be on the air? If it's Sunday, it's SPSM Chat. You're damn right. Here we are. This week's topic, R backslash, or is that a forward slash Black Mental Health? S forward slash suicide prevention. I'm proud of myself for that. Our guest this week, Ashley Jaye, is going to talk about all the cool things that she's doing. We're going to be, of course, we're talking about Black mental health. We're also talking about BPD, borderline personality disorder, and everything in between. Before we get to our guest of honor, let's go to our first co-host, Marie.
Hi everyone, it's Anxiety, also known as Marie Shanley. I am a live talk show mental health host. I am just as prepared as S/suicide prevention here. But yes, so I'm a mental health talk show host. I host interviews, discussions, and then I also game over on Mixer. And I've also written a book about it. And this Wednesday we're having an upliftathon because there's not enough positivity in the world. And I can inhale, take a breath. Back to you, Rudy.
Well, thank you. And Danielle is going to be joining us a little bit in a couple minutes. So don't mind that. And Joelle and Hudson are on assignment. So without further ado, actually, more ado, because I need to make sure that if you're watching this live, please let us know that you're here. Let us know that you care. Salty Meg says, hi, Anxiety. I say hello as well. Hello, Davina. How are you doing? You came to the right place. So whether you're watching this on Facebook, whether you're watching this on Twitter/Periscope, whether you're on YouTube or Mixer, it's basically all /SPSM Chat. We are, of course, at SPSM Chat on Twitter. So if you're on Twitter, speaking of Twitter, we are having a Twitter chat right now, so go introduce yourselves. I'll go check in throughout the show and make sure to give you all some love. If you're on Facebook or Periscope or YouTube, I can put your comments on screen like I did with Salty Meg and Davina. And if you're on Mixer, worry not you. Marie will be checking in on you, and she'll be giving the Mixer report every now and then. Without further ado, tell the whole world, the whole SPSM Chat universe, a galaxy, solar system. Let me try to think. What is a different kind of yard? Who is Ashley Jaye?
Hi everyone. Well, I would definitely consider myself a sloth lover. As you can see in the background, there are two sloths. So I really enjoy sloths. But besides that, I am a solo performer by night and a social media marketer by day. So I do a lot of social media marketing for my day job, and I have a background in theater. So I like doing one-woman shows, and so far I've created 4 of them. And that pretty much takes up my whole life.
Yes, and your Twitter handle is at Ashley Jaye.
Yes, at Ashley Jaye.
Okay, well, we're off to a good start. And so, again, let's get some quick shout outs. Hi, Gwendolyn, how are you? Hi, Nellie Gwynn, how are you? I miss you. And Nellie is a big supporter of me and Joelle as well. So, big shout out to you. Sad we can't hang out right now. So, we got a couple of minutes. So, this is actually cool because you are a performer. And I actually found footage, you heard that right, of you performing.
Oh,
get a load of that. So while the fans are still filing in, let's play some found footage of Ashley Jaye's solo performance, or at least a clip of it.
Hi. Hi, this is Ashley. I was calling for some help. Hi, Ashley. What seems to be the problem? Me. I'm the problem. Have you tried turning it off and on again? What? I don't really think that's possible. It sure is, Ashley. Tell me, what are you experiencing again? BPD. Borderline person.
I'm not going to get a copyright strike for that, am I?
I hope not. I mean, I'm right here. I give you permission.
Awesome. I will remember that if the Facebook, YouTube gods come after me. Okay, so let's check in on Twitter now. Hopefully the stream is pinned to the top. If I can.
I saw it.
Awesome.
I saw it.
So
Tis
that
the
is
truth.
that is the easiest way to go about this. And so please forgive me. Let me get this going because I had to put something else on the screen before we started. So, okay. Screen share time. Sharing is caring. So, hey, Michelle, how are you doing? I appreciate you. Obviously, Ashley and Michelle are acquainted. Isn't that correct?
Yes, we are.
Yes. So thank you, Michelle. We are always glad when we see you. Hello, Katie Gordon. How are you? A previous guest. Actually, more ado. I'm all about the ado on SPSM chat, twitter.com/SPSM chat, facebook.com/SPSM chat, youtube.com/SPSM chat, and mixer.com/SPSM chat. I try to do that.
I'm disappointed that slowed down.
I'm failed. Story of my life. Hey, Josephine's. This was from earlier, so get it together, okay? Stop hijacking the hashtag. So let's get on to question number 1. And that would be, here we go. So what are some of the realities facing Black people who experience mental distress? And let's go with Danielle first. Danielle, answer that question, please.
Hi, everybody. I didn't even see the question because I just got here. What's up?
Okay, let's go to Ashley then.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, Danielle. How are you? Okay. So what are some of the realities facing Black people who experience mental distress? Well, the number one thing, honestly, is that we tend to be overdiagnosed with schizophrenia. There was one Washington Post article I was reading where Black men are 6 times more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia. And another thing is that within the healthcare system as a whole, there's just systemic racism. Like, for example, Black bodies are actually perceived to experience less pain. So whenever we go to the doctor and report that we have some sort of pain, we're not taken as seriously. And then when it comes to mental distress in general, since us as Black people, since our bodies are already seen as aggressive, to have a mental diagnosis on top of that, like, places even more of a burden and a stigma upon us. And I would also say that for Black youth and young adults, we actually have like the highest rate of suicide and suicide attempts. And for Black people that are experiencing like mental distress, the thing is that we don't talk about it because our community, we're kind of more of like pray about it and hope it goes away. So that's kind of like our mentality. And those are some of the realities that are facing Black people.
All right. I think as we go on to our next co-host, I think it goes without saying. Here's a disclaimer of I'm not Black. Marie's not Black. Certainly Danielle isn't. So this is going to be one of those episodes where we kind of let the guests do most of the talking because we don't want to speak out of turn. So unless Marie has something to share about her identity that we haven't heard from before.
I'm actually
Not yet.
American.
Wait.
I'm sorry, what was that, Ashley?
I said I'm actually half African. I'm not kidding. My mother is from North Africa.
Well,
yeah.
Well,
So,
ain't that something?
I'm
Okay.
super white, but I have African ancestry and
Fantastic. So let's go to Marie. Question number 1, sorry.
The only thing that I can speak on this, again, I do feel like it is the time for us to be quiet and to give the floor to somebody who has experience in this. And I don't want to be one of those people that's like, actually, let me tell you statistics because I once took a class on African American history and I did, but it has nothing to do with this topic. Yeah, so I've just the thing that I have I can tell you what I have perceived, and I can tell you what I've seen, and that's the fact is that it's harder, and that's all I'm going to say because I really think it's Ashley's platform.
Yeah, and I'm glad, Ashley. I mean, this is all I'm going to say. Like, I'm glad, Ashley, that you mentioned that Black people are more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia. They're also more likely to be forcibly hospitalized, of course, imprisoned, and all these other horrible things and discrimination. It's being shown that more Black people are being diagnosed with COVID-19, and so discrimination is still very real, so we need to speak out about that in all its various forms. It's not always just about people saying racist things or things that you can see right away. There's all these institutionalized things as well. So let's go to Danielle, and then we'll go back to Ashley. You ready? You ready to go, Danielle?
Do it. Sorry, I look terrible. I've been asleep for most of the weekend. Speaking to what she said, I too was, in a position to see that people of that population are diagnosed way too much with schizophrenia. Speaking from the perspective of someone who is a working therapist right now, the one thing that I do notice, like you had mentioned, is that it's very difficult for people in that community to speak about their problems. And so I've personally seen in my work, and I'm not speaking on behalf of any other therapists here, there is a very high rate of dropout due to all of that of therapy. So you could be working with someone for like 3-4 months, seeing a ton of progress, and then boom, they just don't come back. And I don't know if that's because of, the cultural background, being like anti-therapy. I don't know, because I see different situations for different people. So I think that that's something that impacts this entire situation too. So I would imagine that even with the awareness of what is available, and I just lost my thought. I need more coffee.
How are you holding up there, Danielle? Do you have a COVID-19 update?
I'm exhausted. So I'm now essential, and I've got more than a full caseload right now, and I'm doing everything with telehealth, and I am volunteering hours to the first responders in New York City through telehealth. And I also have friends who are first responders in my town. So I've been trying to be supportive as a friend for them, but it's a lot, because I'm also like a month and a half away from being certified as a drug counselor. So I'm maintaining all of this therapeutic work and school at the same time. And I'm so exhausted, you have no idea. So, but otherwise I'm healthy.
And yet, you're still here. You're still 1/3 of our co-host team. So thanks, Danielle.
Thank you. Cheers.
So,
We love you, and you're beautiful.
You're beautiful.
No,
I look like I just woke up.
no, I'm not allowed to say those. I can't. I can't hear you. You're beautiful. Go ahead.
okay, so while we have about 5 minutes, and this will kind of bleed into our next question, Ashley, can you kind of walk us through your mental health journey from the darkest days to diagnoses until how you've managed to cope now?
Sure. So for my mental health journey is a long one, and it's still going. So I do want to preface this that this is my mental health journey. This is not like the epitome of the mental health journey of like all Black people. I just want to put that out there. So growing up, I knew something was going on with me. And I know as a kid, I experienced like a pretty severe like sexual trauma going on. And as I was growing up, I didn't really deal with it. I just sort of just kind of kept pushing it aside, throwing my head into all my schoolwork. And that carried all the way into college, just throwing myself into speech and debate. And then I also double majored in college. So I was pretty busy because I just didn't want to think about whatever the heck was going on in my head and my body. Like, I just was like, let's just keep going, keep moving. Whatever I'm feeling doesn't matter. Invalid. Bad idea, people. Don't do that. And so as I was going through college, that was when I actually had like my first like attempt. And from that attempt, that's when me and also like my family and friends, they're like, I think you need help. And so that's when I sought out like a therapist. And I started seeing a therapist for a while, and that therapist, she was actually a Black therapist, and she diagnosed me with clinical depression. And so I had that diagnosis, and then eventually I got on medication. And after that year of getting diagnosed with depression and being on medication, like I had a few other more attempts, which actually landed me into the hospital. And so what's interesting about my hospital experience is that I was actually in like two different ones. So I was in like a county mental health like hospital, and then I was in like a more kind of like nonprofit, like semi-privatized mental health hospital as well. So I had like both experiences. So when I was in county, that was like horrifying. Like I was in there with a lot of people who were, I would say, at the higher end of the spectrum in terms of how severe their symptoms were. And so it was scary for me because I'm not at that end of the spectrum. And then I was actually transferred from county into like a nonprofit hospital. And from there, it was just drastically different. Like in county, like they would kind of serve you like a tray full of like gushy food, but there wasn't really anything to do. Versus in the nonprofit hospital, they were like, look at all of our activities. Come and do yoga. Oh, you want a piece of cake? Here you go. Like I was just like, whoa, what is this like Garden of Eden going on? And in my solo performance that the clip that you actually showed, I actually talk in that show. I actually talk about my experience between like the two different hospitals and like what that's like. And so after my hospitalization, shortly afterwards, I got a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. And at first I almost got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. Like I think it was like I think it's called like cyclical bipolar disorder. But then they're like, no, I'm sorry, what were you saying, Danielle?
You said rapid cycling bipolar?
Yeah, I almost got diagnosed with that.
Cyclothymia.
Yeah, cyclothymia.
Yeah.
That.
I got you.
Thank you. I almost got diagnosed with that one. But instead I was like, no, it's not really periods for me. It's more like instant, you know? And so they're like, okay, well, probably more bipolar disorder. I mean, not bipolar, borderline personality disorder. And so then from there, I started seeing a DBT therapist who was also Black. And then I actually started going to DBT classes, and now I'm here.
Well, we're glad you're here, and I'm glad you're sharing. I'm glad we connected. How long have you been following SPSM chat as I'm stuttering over my words?
Ooh. Danielle. How long have I been following? I've been following for a while. I think the first time I saw you guys, I forget their name was on here, but I know they have a website about like suicide, like suicide.
Maria Angelou? The portraits? No?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, those are the rough days. I
think.
I haven't told Mary Angela. We need to have you back because we were still trying to find our way back then, like last August. Okay, so before we get on to question number 2, let's just check in with Twitter real quick. So Joelle Marie, who is helping moderate the chat, running the SPSM chat Twitter account, says, in response to question number 1, generally, quote unquote, distress is pathologized excessively. As an observer, I definitely see distress, anger, frustration, challenge to unethical or unquestionable behaviors all marked as, quote unquote, inappropriate, criminal, and or troublemaking when the same things are done or said by Black versus white people. Most people who experience distress requiring extensive support also experience abuse and manipulation, but I observe Black people getting an increased amount of it, and the use of quote-unquote mental health system as a punitive system. And Michelle says, I'm not Black, but I'm basing my answers on my experience working with Black communities and based on what others have shared. Ditto to everything Ashley said. There's a lot of culturally sensitive / culturally appropriate services. #SPSM SPSM. Thank you, Ashley and Joelle. Thank you to people who are commenting on Facebook. I see you, Adriana. Tabitha says, private versus public is different, and also minor versus adult are two very different experiences. Also, thank you for correcting us, cyclothymic Tabitha Jones. I appreciate that as well. I believe there was another comment. Davina says, Ashley, that is sad to hear. I am in substance abuse counseling, so I'm aware of the stigma associated with certain races. So the more knowledgeable I become, the better I can help. Hey, we're providing a service here. Thank you to all for educating me more so that I can be a better service in my field. You are very much welcome. Hopefully you stick with us. If you're just joining us, everyone out there, you're watching SPSM Chat, Suicide Prevention, Social Media. I'm Rudy Caceres, and today's show is R//BlackMentalHealth, S//Suicide Prevention.
It lands every time.
It
Yes.
does. It's
Question
sticking with me now.
number 2, and that would be, how might a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, that's BPD for all those following along at home, present differently in Black people than other populations? So take it away, Ashley.
Sure. Again, I cannot speak for every single Black person that may or may not be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, but this is just based on my experience and some minimal knowledge that I have just from some personal research. So for question number 2 about how BPD might show up differently in Black folks, for me personally, BPD doesn't show up as quote unquote obvious. So it's actually considered a subtype because there's actually 4 different subtypes for borderline personality disorder. The first one's like quiet borderline. The second one is like petulant. Third one is impulsive. And then the fourth one is self-destructive. I won't go into each one, but
Well, we have
the
time.
quiet... well, I'll probably circle back to it. But for me personally, typically, like, even if you just do a Google search of BPD, you get a lot of like comments and articles talking about how manipulative people with BPD are, or how like they're out to get you. And it's just all this just horrible information. And so for me, in my experience, even getting the diagnosis of borderline personality disorder, like my psychiatrist didn't even tell me he diagnosed me with it because he was like, well, like I didn't want to like upset you. And I was like, well, no, like this is amazing. Like I need this label. I need to get help. This is so much better. And for me, BPD doesn't, like the symptomology of it doesn't show up as obvious. Like for example, one of the BPD symptoms is self-harm. For me, I don't self-harm in a way. So I don't really do that. And then also when you think of people with BPD, you tend to think of like the intense bouts of anger. So like lashing out, and it's just a lot of like outward showing of the symptomologies. And for me, mine's is all inward, AKA the quiet borderline type. So like anything that kind of happens to me, I turn it on myself, and I'm just like, oh, like if someone like purposely like called me like a slur or something, I'm just like, oh my gosh, maybe I am that. This is horrible. I'm a horrible person. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. And it's all turned on to me. And then from that experience, like it leads to like dissociative thinking and impulsivity, whether it be me recklessly spending a whole bunch of money, and so it's not as obvious. And I use that in quotes because like a lot of the symptomology is observed, obviously. But for me, I don't display that unless you're around me like 24/7.
Would you say that coming on SPSM Chat is reckless behavior?
No.
I would.
Yes. Well, now's your time to give your take, Marie Shanley.
No, I have nothing. I have nothing other than present differently. Just in general, BPD is overdiagnosed in women, and there's a lot of misconceptions about it. And that's that. So I can only imagine what it must be like for a group that's already marginalized. It's not going to be much easier again. And what Ashley touched upon, how much crap people with BPD get, and like the bad rap and misunderstanding and impatience with their symptoms and all of that. And so yeah, it just sucks. That's my answer. Sucks.
How are we doing on Mixer, Marie?
We are so quiet on Mixer. It's okay. There's it's a quiet night. It's an easy breezy kind of night.
Some tells me I'm gonna have to do more stuff on Mixer in order to get people's attention. Would you say that, Marie?
Yeah, I mean, you could, there's a show, maybe you could come on this Tuesday. That's my first thought, if you wanted to play some games or something.
Yeah, I mean, is that like riding your coattails though? Does that feel weird?
I mean, I'm riding your coattails by being on the show, so I think we're good.
Cool. So for those who don't know, I'm going to be on Marie's show on Tuesday. So that'll be fun. What are we going to be doing while we have some time?
Yeah. Oh, we have time. That's why I'm like, why are you asking me? I'm so bad at picking up.
One sentence as a response.
Yeah. So we're on Tuesday. You are starting at 8 p.m. I got this. You're starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and we are going to talk about you. We're going to deep dive into. I'm not sending you the questions in advance. One, because I didn't prepare them, and because it's a little last minute. But two, because I want to hear the real answers. So I don't want anything prepared at all.
Awesome.
And I know
I
you
had that luxury.
Yeah. Ow.
Okay, last question, Marie, for you. Then we'll go on to Danielle.
I'm very important.
Can we be best friends on Animal Crossing, please?
We can't. This is a tough topic. We're gonna have to talk about it offline. Okay. The best friend thing has been a source of a lot of confusion for people and upsetness. I don't want to upset anybody, but we'll talk about being best friends.
Is it
there's
like
a high
MySpace
potential.
top 8?
No, it's not. It's just it makes it easier to invite people to certain things. So if I only want to play with these people, I don't just want. Basically gives you freer access to visit my island at any time, and so I could be just chilling, and you could come and invade it. It's very important stuff. Very, very important. Yeah.
How's your island doing, Danielle?
I don't play that game, and I don't have time for it. If I apologize.
It is a big time suck. Yeah.
I play it.
Oh my God! Really?
Yeah, I'm a gamer. What?
No, I mean, I figured that when you said you were on Twitch, but I didn't, not everybody's playing Animal Crossing. What am I saying?
Yeah, we might have to cancel the topic for this show and just talk about Animal Crossing for the next hour.
I'm not opposed to that, but we literally started by saying, hey, we should give space to people who normally don't have a voice, and now we're like, let's talk about Animal Crossing instead, right?
Awesome. Okay, well, before we go back to Ashley, did you have anything to say, Danielle?
In regard to the presentation of people in the Black community. I think that when it comes to, I can only answer this from the therapist perspective here. And I think that there's a lot of people who, no matter how much education we have, no matter how much we work around certain populations, A, are just not multiculturally competent, and B, don't really have an understanding of personality disorders, which I think is part of the reason why so many females, so many people in certain populations are overdiagnosed. And a lot of the symptoms can present in a certain way when they're actually a different diagnosis, like bipolar disorder. I've worked with a lot of people of different races who have been diagnosed BPD when in fact they were not. It was just a rush diagnosis because they were inpatient or because they were just trying to get a referral. And then you dive into their experiences and you unravel a whole bunch of history and this, that, and the other thing, and you're like, oh, wait, no, you're not. And I think that is a very big problem when diagnosing borderline to anyone, anywhere. I think that it's really important to really, truly know everything about the personality disorders before you just throw a diagnosis out or even with a mood disorder, just know your DSM, know your ICD, because it's really damaging. You attach stigma to people who already had stigma and make it much worse for them, and less inclined to approach therapy when it's a situation that needs to be treated, like in terms of helping someone develop coping skills or whatever it is, process their traumas. So in terms of looking at it from a therapist lens, I've never seen a differentiation. I can't English. I have not been able to see differences in someone in the African American community or, Hispanic or Caucasian. I see the symptoms and I treat it appropriately because each person's individual. So you could look at everything in the DSM and say, okay, they meet all of the criteria, but it presents differently from person to person. And that's not just with BPD. I think that's with like literally everything. So you really have to have a strong understanding of what you're looking like before you could slap a label on somebody. And Ashley, I've had clients where I've had to explain to them, okay, so you are borderline. And I've literally been verbally like attacked because I told them, this is what your diagnosis is. This is what, when you were inpatient, I talked to those providers, we've all, collectively agreed this is appropriate. People have a really hard time hearing the diagnosis of borderline because of all of the negativity that's surrounded with that diagnosis. Some of it, you will interact with people who meet all of those negative stereotypes about BPD, but that's not the majority of them. And I think there's a real lack of psychoeducation about what borderline really is, because some awesome people have BPD. Most of them are awesome, but to me, again, it just goes back to me as a therapist myself. Like I don't see gender, I don't see sexuality, I don't see race. I just see a person who is coming to me for support and encouragement, and it's about building that rapport and trying to figure out what they need, because they're not going to look like the next BPD client or the next BIPOC client that I have to work with. So that's my answer, and I hope that was good.
Let's take it to the Twitter, and let's, before we get to question number 3, Joelle Marie says, I am so done with the whole quote-unquote manipulation label. Everyone manipulates to get what they need. Everyone manipulates the resources and opportunities they see to get what they need and what will serve them. Stop trashing people as manipulative and quote-unquote attention-seeking. Stop it. Lynn says, race aside, I believe BPD is so different in everyone diagnosed. Like Ashley said, it can be impulsivity, self-reflection, and negative self-talk, self-harm. Okay. And we have some comments on the others. So I know, okay. So Joelle says, I feel like, let's put it on me. I feel like there is so much assumption about the diagnosis of BPD that it's all external. Adriana says, as a clinician working within different diverse communities, you frequently hear and have to challenge negative stereotypes associated with BPD, and many clinicians have to be challenged. Salty Meg says, I hate the way people with BPD are stigmatized by psychologists who should know better. That is right. And Tabitha says, I first learned about culturally sensitive psychology from a mental health mag in the early 2000s. It said that something like the witch's ride, something, I haven't heard that term in a while. Something apparently common in the Black community may be misinterpreted, misunderstood, and overdiagnosed. There are religious and regional things that come into play. Are there any others that you could share? And if you want to respond to that, Ashley, I'll let you do that when I go back to you. Adrian says, for perpetuating stereotypes, of course, given Afro-Americans face harsh negative stereotypes associated with the personality. Adriana goes on to say, already these BPD stereotypes are far more frequent and often cause individuals to avoid therapy. Nellie Gwen says, how do African-American families cope with suicide attempts or actual suicides? Again, Ashley, if you want to tackle that, you are more than welcome to, although it is not required. Laz says, clap, clap, clap over anxiety. That's probably you talking about Animal Crossing, I guess. Tabitha says, I feel like it's all trauma. I hate these diagnostic labels. Tabitha says that negativity is from the past. Now, I love these comments, by the way. I know
they've been good.
It's a lot to take in, but I appreciate them all. Okay, so Laz says, sorry, I'm looking at all the platforms except Mixer to make sure things are okay. That's totally fine.
I got Mixer.
Yes. Thank you, Marie. Question number 3, how can the taboos of suicide be addressed in Black communities? Take it away, Ashley Jaye.
Sure. Again, can't speak for every single Black person. This is just based on my experience and just my opinion. But how can the taboo of suicide be addressed in Black communities? Number one, honestly, is we just need to talk about it. And just more of us Black folks, African Americans, we just need to talk more. Like, we need to let each other know when something's wrong. And at the same time, when we do let others know that something's wrong or that we feel like, killing ourselves, that the person on the other end responds with compassion instead of judgment. Because typically what tends to happen is, if someone were to say like, really don't want to be on this earth anymore, I don't want to be here. Typically, as Black folks, and in my experience, we tend to respond with, oh, well, just go to church, pray to God, Jesus will heal everything. You don't have anything to be sad about. You got food, you got clothes, you got this, you got that. What's there to be sad about? Why are you gonna kill yourself over this? Why are you gonna be selfish like that? That's how, in my experience, that's how people have reacted to me. And from my other Black friends who have had past suicide attempts, they've also experienced the same thing too. Because for me, I grew up in a pretty religious home, so I grew up in the church, and a lot is set on that Jesus will heal everything and save everything, so you don't really need to do anything else. When in reality, it's well, Jesus created therapists, so why can't the two go together? So it's we got to work together in this. And I would also tack on to the just talking about it. For specifically people who need to talk about it, it's not only just us as just, regular civilians, but also just Black celebrities, especially Black athletes and rappers, because a lot of young people look up to them. And if they were to step forward more and say, hey, I'm dealing with depression, or hey, I'm not okay all the time, or hey, just because I got all these racks and Lamborghinis and all these things doesn't mean I'm totally happy, And there have been some athletes that have come forward and talked about their mental health issues. And honestly, that's so beneficial for the community. And another community that should also talk about, suicide or even just mental health in general is the church. The Black church should just talk about it more. We need that space. Yes, Jesus saves, but also we need to be able to say, I'm not okay. I need more support, past this. And if the church was the one actually talking about it, I think it would honestly open up more conversation organically in the community.
Speaking of Jesus, happy Easter, everyone.
Happy Easter.
Happy
Yes.
Passover.
Happy.
Thank
Happy
you.
Passover.
Marie, what are your thoughts on Jesus?
Oh. Back to you, Rudy. No, I'm kidding. We can't take a second here. The taboo of I would want to know. So obviously, reaching through churches. I actually have a different question for Ashley. If I could pose it to her, if that's cool.
Sure.
You mentioned before that you explicitly pointed to the fact that you had an African American therapist and an African American psychiatrist. Do you think that there's a difference? Were you ever encountering some white therapist who was just yeah, you're fine, or did you have some awful experience there, or
I wouldn't.
Do you think there's a difference? Sorry.
No problem. I definitely wouldn't say they were awful experiences. I would definitely say having a Black psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist is helpful, and that I don't spend 40 minutes of my session trying to explain my Blackness to my therapist. So, if I have a therapist that looks like me, I don't need to explain to them about microaggressions, or why I'm mad that Karen came up to me and said, "Ooh, let me touch your hair." I don't need to explain that, the underlying tones to that.
Thank you.
Did you have anything to say or ask or add, Danielle?
Well, while you were talking about having a Black therapist and whatnot, I was thinking about my own therapist. My therapist is Jewish, I'm Jewish, and it has helped tremendously in my own PTSD treatment, because there's certain things that are because of my upbringing, my childhood, my religion, whatever it is, that I don't have to explain. And it was something that I never actually thought about, because I'd be like, this one time during Hanukkah, and he's like, I get it. My mother was like that too, whatever it is. And I know that as I was going through my first master's program, there was a lot of conversation about this, and it is recommended to, people, or it's not recommended, it's discussed about how it does provide a level of comfort to stick with your own, for minorities. I can't remember exactly what, there was like a whole unit that we did, about how you have higher success rates of people staying in treatment with people of their own, religious background, this, that, and the other thing. But then flip side is the ethical standards, like the ACA, the APA, all of that stuff. We're not supposed to even bring that into session as therapists. So I just think it's like really interesting. And with regard to like the whole suicide issue, I just think that it boils down to, like you said, you can integrate it into, media or into church or whatever, but at the end of the day, there just needs to be more conversation and more education provided, because there are a multitude of resources available to all populations. And I think that people don't really know what's out there for them. We can go onto Facebook and see the crisis text line stuff and the suicide prevention hotline number and all that, but what are we doing to actually make people services that are in the community, such as therapists or groups or whatever it is that they need in terms of getting that support? So to me, it's just keep educating and keep pushing the conversation, because I don't know. Hi.
Okay, so before we get on to our fourth and final question, Joelle had a question, and that is, I am curious about thoughts on cultural sensitivity versus cultural responsiveness. We actually talked about that a little bit when we had Dr. Kimya and Dennis on a few months ago, and it's good to get another perspective, or perhaps a riff on the same perspective. So let's get Ashley Jaye's perspective.
Ooh, cultural sensitivity versus cultural responsiveness. Well, actually, I'm actually going to throw the question back at y'all, because I just want to make sure. Can someone just quickly define maybe like the difference between the two? I want to make sure I respond appropriately.
Okay, so hopefully I'm getting this right. Joelle, feel free to just come out of the bedroom and correct me in real time. So basically, cultural sensitivity is, at least like when it comes to like these trainings and stuff, they feel like they're mandatory, that it's like a thing you check mark, and you say like, oh, I'm culturally sensitive because I know not to say certain words in front of certain people, and so on and so forth. Whereas cultural responsiveness is more about actively advocating for justice and wanting to not make it all about the person, and highlight, oh, I'm so sensitive, I'm so woke. And so hopefully I'm getting that right. If anyone else has any thing to add upon that, please. If not, hopefully that explains it somewhat. Ashley?
Okay. So curious about my thoughts on cultural sensitivity versus cultural responsiveness. I guess this goes out to mostly, I guess, non-Black therapist. I mean, if you're working with Black people in particular, yeah, you gotta be culturally sensitive. Like, don't come at us with like, hey sis, like don't, like we don't need that. Like, don't have to touch my hair, stuff like that. Like just knowing, like just having that like cultural, I'll probably say maybe cultural competency, maybe, instead of like sensitivity. I don't know if I particularly like cultural sensitivity, because it sounds like you're kind of like tiptoeing like around things. But like in terms of competency, that's something that you can like learn and like work on. So I would just say, learn about the community you're working with,
Yes.
talk to them, like, and then in terms of cultural responsiveness, in terms of like taking action, I would say take action where within your ability, I would say. Like, you know, just because like you work with maybe an underserved community doesn't mean you need to like be the superhero of that community. Like, honestly, like if one of your clients is struggling and they're talking about something that's maybe sensitive to their culture or a part of their culture, just listen, you know? Like you don't need to say like, well, actually, or, you know, add your 2 cents. Like, just listen. Like, honestly, that goes a long way. Like, we don't need you to like go to the courthouse and try to do a whole prison reform, you know?
Question number 4, the final question. How can online communities like Reddit, which I believe Ashley Jaye knows a thing or two about, help change the conversation around Black mental health? Hey, you know who we should ask first this question of number 4? Let's ask Danielle. How would you say Reddit? What's going on?
I only use Reddit for like memes and, or I don't know, it's like an alternative to TikTok for me right now. But there's so many different, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that question. I'm going to pass it on to Marie.
Well, let's go to Ashley, who's the real expert. I'm just joking with you, Danielle.
I don't know if I consider myself a Reddit expert, but I mean, I've been on there for, my profile says 6 years, so I don't know about an expert, but so in terms of how the Reddit community can help with creating conversations like around mental health, for me, on Reddit, I'm actually a part of subreddits, so these are like the forums. If you guys don't know, I don't know if everyone's on Reddit, so
that's their problem.
But, right. So there's like a lot of subreddits, so communities on Reddit, and you know, I'm a part of a lot of mental health ones. You know, I'm a part of like mental health memes or like BPD, the BPD community, the depression community, you know, and while I was involved or either lurking in those communities, I just noticed that there wasn't really a space for Black people. So, and so what I did one day in r/BPD, I was like, hey, are there any Black folks in this in this community? Just like, I just want to know, because I myself, I don't really meet too many other Black people with BPD. So that's why I was just kind of reaching out like, hey, anybody else Black and BPD up in here? And I actually got a lot of responses, maybe over at least like 50, 60 responses to my post saying like, yep, we're here. And so that evolved into just like a private group chat on Reddit. And so that was like about 30 people in a private group chat. So it was really crowded. And just really crowded, a lot of chatter. And the group actually proposed that we make a subreddit from that. And they're all like, hey, you should do it because you created the chat. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm the delegate. And so I created the subreddit r/BlackMentalHealth on Reddit. And so that's how it was born. And from this community, we grew. We're only like a little over a month old now, and we're at like almost 300 members. I definitely would say the numbers have definitely been doubling since the quarantine. But since its inception, I've actually gotten messages from people just thanking me for creating this subreddit, and that they feel more seen and that they feel less lonely and that they're happy to like finally have a place on Reddit to come to either just like vent about what's going on or like ask for help or just like find resources like and just discover more about themselves, their mental health or their mental illness if they have like a diagnosis. And I actually got a message once from a lady. She disclosed to me that she was not Black, so she said she was white. She was this white lady. And she said that she works with, you know, predominantly Black college students, and that she was asking me for permission to join the group. And I said, girl, it's public. Just come in, you know? She's like, well, I don't want to take up space. I was like, look, you know, and her intention was that she wanted to be just a better support and a better ally for her students. and that also that she deals with mental health herself. So she just wanted to make sure that, you know, she was being culturally competent to her students. And so that's why she wanted to join the subreddit. So she's in there. And then we also have some mental health professionals that are in there. We have a couple like therapists. I think we have a nurse in there too. But yeah, we have just a whole wide range of people in our subreddit.
Have you gotten your own trolls yet?
Yeah, we've gotten people that are like, why is there a black mental health? What about white mental health? And I'm like,
Oh,
That's called SPSM chat most Sundays.
yeah. Literally anywhere else.
yeah. So, but it's not too bad. So we haven't had to do too much like moderation so far. But as we grow, I know we'll definitely need to probably put more spam filters.
What say you, Marie? Are you a Redditor?
I actually was for a very long time. Like I had like a problem with it, and then I had to change that account to an anxiety account, and I have kind of chilled off. I don't know what it was, but like in college and when I just graduated college, I was like obsessed and on all the forums and everything. Troll X Chromosomes is one of the best. Well, it used to be one of the best subreddits ever.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, it's still fantastic now, but it's different. You know, it's different. I think we're in concluding thoughts, right, Rudy?
No, we're going to go to Danielle, and then we'll circle back to final thoughts.
Okay. All right, that's it.
All right. Have you ever joined the subreddit Suicide Prevention?
I think I will after this. I don't know that it's a subreddit as much as it's like a threadit. I think is or set it.
The world may never know. Danielle.
Set it / suicide prevention.
I don't know. Well, I just think online communities are beneficial, period, because some people might not be ready to approach people like myself. Or I was just reading the Twitter responses. I see a lot of other social workers and clinical psychologists chiming in, and like, I know that there's a certain level of comfort in having the ability to remain anonymous before you're approaching someone like myself for further help. So whether it's for a diagnosis like borderline or it's for suicidal thoughts, sometimes it's easier to get that peer support anonymously before us. So I think they are beneficial, and that's really all I have to say about that. Like, my coffee is wearing off. I apologize.
Well, it's almost 11 over there, or 10, so
10.
I
It's
might want
sleepy
to hold
times.
off on the coffee for the rest of the night, but I'm glad you made it this
I
far.
have
So
so
before we get on to final thoughts, let's take it to Twitter one last time. I'm going to try to speak with some kind of coherence. Michelle, in response to question number 3, says, let's give space for more Black folks to share their experiences and their needs, elevate Black voices and Black therapists. We, as in non-Black folks, need to stop telling them what healing means. We need to acknowledge how our systems are failing our Black communities. Lynn says, acceptance, acceptance, acceptance. Hey, you're late, Lynn. I didn't see you the first 10 minutes or so, okay? I'm not signing off on your extra credit. Again, in my experience, where is your professor, okay? Again, I will have your professor on. I will cancel Christmas if I have to. Again, in my experience, just like everyone else apparently, stigma that in Black communities that is supposed to care about mental health, everyone is good. Let's seek acceptance let's seek acceptance of it's okay to not be okay and find a therapist. Elaine says, I think online communities in general such a great outlet to talk about the stigma and anxiety of speaking face to face. And thank you, Michelle, for breaking it down as far as cultural sensitivity versus cultural responsibility, socialworker.com. Great resource. Michelle also says, in response to question number 4, I'm not on Reddit. Editor's note, yet. But there's a ton of folks and orgs on Twitter, but that provide a lot of insight and add to the conversation about hashtag Black mental health. Some folks that I follow are these people. So let's take it to final thoughts, because I'm sure people have them. Otherwise, they would be second to final thoughts. So before we end with Ashley, let's go back to Marie. Final thoughts, Marie.
I think the best lesson I ever learned from somebody in the African American community in general about any final thoughts on anything relating to Black culture is that they should not be said by me, and not speaking over, but speaking along with, and basically letting the minority, take the lead. And that is that. I hope we did that successfully here. I think we did. And I definitely just want to continue, I definitely want to be an ally however I can. And I want to continue, just having something brought to my attention and being like, all right, let's go. Let's talk about it. And I would be excited to have you on my show too, Ashley, to continue the conversation.
What show would that be, Marie?
It's like this thing. It's Mixer.com/anxiety.
Well, thanks for being one of my co-hosts, Marie. I appreciate you anytime you're on, and I always appreciate when Danielle is on, especially when she's moving heaven and earth and her own physical and mental health just to be on the camera. So, final thoughts, Danielle.
I just hope that people took away a lot from what you said tonight, Ashley. I think that it's important, even for people who are not in my field working as therapists, to just meet people where they are. Until you know more of somebody's story, just try to refrain from judgment, because that just makes it worse. I personally find personality disorders absolutely fascinating. So I was really excited when Rudy told me that you were coming on tonight, even though my thing as a clinician is more mood disorders and substance use disorder. But I just think it's important to keep talking, whether it's about Black mental health or borderline. I think it's a very important conversation in both directions that needs to continue. You're all awesome. You're all beautiful. And my hair looks like, there's something living in it right now.
Hey. No.
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 No self-bashing.
This is when you've done too much telehealth and you're starting to give up on your appearance. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, when all else fails, you have TikTok. So do you have a TikTok update before we wrap things up?
Actually, I have been TikToking like nonstop to fall asleep. And I think that one thing that I'm finally finding on TikTok, well, I need my glasses, I can't see anything. One thing I'm finally finding on TikTok is that there is, going back to like the social media platforms, there is a mental health little community on TikTok. Sometimes I personally make TikToks about like coping skills and this, that, and the other thing. Mostly it's just been fun TikToks because I feel a little cabin feverish, but there are a lot of social workers, clinical psychologists. It's just really cool that a lot of people during this time with us all on, isolation mode here are utilizing this platform to help other people with their mental health. And it's kind of been very connecting. I've had people reach out to me. One girl found out that I was a child therapist and asked me if I would adopt her, which I thought was cute. But it is a nice platform to be creative and talk about mental health.
Hey, it sounds like there's a place for a TikTok SPSM chat account. So,
What's that?
I don't think it would be a bad idea. I've got almost 100 followers, so I'm clearly TikTok famous, and I will gladly advertise on SPSM.
Will you post your link somewhere?
Yeah.
People are asking.
Yeah. It's Danielle Glick 5.
There we go.
Okay.
So
Danielle Glick 5.
Before we get to Ashley's final thoughts, I just want to give the spotlight to Joelle, who is one of our co-hosts, but is also helping with the chat. Final thoughts: we don't have a right to have someone explain themselves to us. It's not a value exchange for support assistance or acceptance. We don't have a right to be some kind of fucked up savior. People deserve what they need, not what makes us feel better. Ashley Jaye, final thoughts.
Sure. Final thoughts. Wow. Trying to condense all that I want to say. So final thoughts is for people in the Black community. This is for you. Talk. Please talk. Talk to your friends. Talk to your loved ones. And also if there is even a better time to seek therapy, it would be now, honestly. And slight plug, Taraji P. Henson has a foundation that's actually offering like free telehealth for Black people and people who may not afford it. So give that a little Google, okay? Get you some therapy going. And then for all my non-Black folks, just support us, see us as humans, support our mental health. Because we need it, elevate our voices when you can and listen when needed.
And how can we connect with you? This is the time for shameless self-promotion.
Ooh, connect with me. You can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at Ashley Jaye, right there on the little thing right there. And I'm also on YouTube. You can look me up at Ashley Jaye, I guess. And also Reddit. Join the subreddit. It's open to everyone. It's r/BlackMentalHealth. Hope to see you guys in there.
Awesome,
Woo-hoo.
awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. You made it. You survived SPSM chat, the Easter/Passover edition. So thank you so much for being on. Please, let's stay connected.
Sure.
Don't run away from us like past guests. Stay in touch.
No shade.
You are appreciated. Well, sometimes we want the guests to not contact us again, so that's totally fine. Okay, so that's
All
gonna
right,
do
I
it.
get the hint.
That's gonna do it. I'm talking about the Carrie Fisher lady. That's gonna do it for this week. Next Sunday, we're gonna be talking with Lydia XZ Brown and Shane AM Newmeyer. Hopefully I get that right. We're going to be talking about autism and suicide. I know Joelle Marie is looking forward to that episode as well. For those who don't know, April is Autism Acceptance Month, so there's a lot of narratives going on, but oftentimes it's not the actually autistic perspective is not given the spotlight like it should. So there we go. It took us long enough, but here we are. We're talking about autism and suicide next Sunday, 6 p.m. Pacific time. Twitter.com/SPSM chat, Facebook.com/SPSM chat, YouTube.com/SPSM chat. Did I say Facebook or did I say Mixer?
I think you said Facebook.
Mixer.com/SPSM chat. We are at SPSM chat. Go to SPSMchat.com when I finally get around to updating the website. Thank you to everyone. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Marie. Of course, thank you, Ashley. If you're not doing so already, go follow all these lovely people. Do not follow Danielle, though, unless it's TikTok.
Yeah, not
okay?
on Facebook, not on Instagram. No.
TikTok.
Don't do it. I'm not going into private practice in the next couple of months, and I don't need people to reach out to me for therapeutic help.
Until next week.
Bye, guys. I'm so tired.
He disconnected his mic! Yes! Yes! Oh, it's so perfect! I saw it. You were so excited. You were so ready to make the...
Hold your pickies close.